Can you walk into a room and say nothing yet? Your presence makes the noise settle. If the answer wavers, try a bold assumption. Your value isn't a number or a label. It's a distilled field of energy, a steady power of containment, where the social self-persona stops performing and the self begins to glow. This isn't a lesson in becoming a luxury commodity. It's an invitation back to inner class, the thing that arrives before reputation and lingers after the applause. For the next 10 seconds, drop your shoulders, slow your breath, and ask, do I truly belong to myself? If not, what inner force is running my entrance? The exiled shadow, or an animus anima that has never been heard? The rushing world keeps dragging you toward the loudness where value means visibility, explanation proof. But in Jung's frame, real value is the gravity of presence, the kind you earn when you trade noise for depth, reactivity for awareness, impressing for integrity. Once you grasp this, your gaze stops hunting for approval and becomes a clear mirror. You can read motives, notice projections, and quietly reclaim the energy that's been leaking away. To carry yourself like a luxury brand isn't about price, it's about rarity. Rare compromise, rare excuses, rare hollow glitter. Rich in calm, in clean boundaries, and in a breath slow enough for the mind to come home. You start caring about the hidden mechanics like a finely tuned watch. The gears are micro habits, posture, pauses, cadence. The oil is self-observation. The crystal is your boundaries. When the gears lock in, persona returns to its rightful role, a ceremonial garment, and the self keeps your breathing steady in any room. Then even your silence says, I'm not here to be consumed, I'm here to be experienced. Paradoxically, the less you are available for everything, the more you matter to what's right. Value isn't your level of access, it's the density of meaning you carry. So what do you need to begin today? First, the courage to face the shadow, the angers, the softness. You were shamed for the ambition, the fear of abandonment. In Jung's view, nothing in you is trash, only power not yet integrated. When you learn to hold the poles soft and firm speech and stillness, advance and pause, and a third thing appears, freedom of choice. From here, class no longer comes from outer tags, but from inner authority, the ability to say no without apologizing, yes without selling out, and to keep silence without shrinking. And then something strange happens. You no longer need to be believed. You become someone who can be trusted. Let's begin in the quiet place that decides everything, recognizing your own worth as an inner gravity. In Jung's language, this isn't a fleeting shot of confidence, but a resonance between the persona, the garment you wear in the world, and the self, the living center, older than any business card. In America, we grow up inside leaderboards, KPIs, likes, and salaries. It's easy to mistake visibility for value. But visibility can be noise. Value is gravity. Gravity doesn't shout, it draws things into orbit. When you realize you carry gravity, you stop bargaining with your presence. You no longer beg for eyes. You become the metronome of the room, quiet, steady, close enough to be felt, far enough not to be consumed. Ask yourself, in your next room, will you bring gravity or volume? Picture a very American scene, Monday strategy meeting, white lights, slides racing like a bullet train. Elena, a young manager, fills every silence to prove she's worth it, terrified that one quiet second means she has no value. That night, she dreams she's in a hall of mirrors, price tags stuck to her skin. With every voice around her, the numbers flicker up and down. A doorkeeper hands her a black velvet cloth. She wipes the tags, the digits vanish, and a single round seal remains a simple mandala. On waking, she realizes her persona has been selling something that never needed selling: presence. Dreams are the language of the unconscious. This one says, self-worth isn't for pricing, it's for grounding. What price tag have you allowed others to hang on your skin? Be careful, though, at the threshold of power. Weight's a trap, inflation, the delusion of omnipotence when the ego touches the deep. You'll know you're sliding in when you stop listening. When silence hardens into icy pride. When boundaries become judgmental fences. Real value doesn't need a megaphone, and it never shrinks others to look tall. In Jung's frame, maturity is the capacity to contain opposites, soft and firm light, and dark speech and stillness, without fusing to either pole. From that inner poise, you walk into the room as someone who belongs, not because you were invited, but because you invited yourself. Where lately have you mistaken cold distance for true composure? The secret of steady value is the alliance between your inner anima and animus, the feminine and masculine principles within. In a woman, a healthy animus isn't the cold critic, it's a wise logos. I'll say what's true briefly and on time. In a man, a balanced anima isn't emotional overflow. It's the capacity to touch, to listen, to wait. When these two shake hands, you don't speak to self-soothe, you speak to clarify. You don't go silent from fear. You go silent to hold and to reflect. It happens in tiny micro-mechanics of presence. One inhale, a beat before answering, an undefended gaze, an open posture that isn't lax. These are the gears of your inner watch. The finer the watch, the more valuable your time. Which micro-habit, if you tuned it by just 5%, would change your entire vibe? Try this 90-second ritual before a meeting or a crowded mixer. One hand on chest, one on belly. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Whisper, I belong to myself. Picture the persona as a well-cut jacket, elegant, fitted, but not fused to your skin. Call anima/animus to stand behind you like an invisible spine. Let them give you one line today. I'm clear without being harsh. Walk out the door with this axiom. I'm not here to be consumed. I'm here to be experienced. You'll notice the room gets quieter, not because the noise stops, but because your nervous system stops acting like a loudspeaker. Where could you test this ritual today? Another marker of steady value, you stop confusing easygoing with compassion. Compassion has boundaries. Easygoing doesn't. In cities like New York or Los Angeles, where the rhythm trades your self-respect for your seat at the table, self-compassion asks, what am I trying to buy by selling off my peace? That question is the soul's break. It helps you see the invisible contracts you sign, unpaid overtime to be a team player, midnight replies to look always available, smiling through disrespect to keep the vibe. Each act slaps another price tag on your skin. Every clean, no short, clear, unapologetic drops a tag to the floor. Which contract will you renegotiate first? The Jungian twist is this: we don't smash the shadow, we bring it home. When a voice inside hisses, you're not enough. Imagine a soaked child standing in the rain. Don't argue. Invite them onto the porch and hand them a dry towel. Ask, what are you trying to protect me from? Behind the jeer, you'll find the fear of abandonment. Behind the rage, love that went unseen. Once held, the shadow stops wrecking the house and starts warming that fuel for your presence. Warm, bright, orderly. Which part of you is still waiting on the porch? If you felt named by this, join our small circle of people training gravity over noise. Drop a one-line commitment in the comments. My worth doesn't wobble when, or share where you will try the 90-second ritual. Speaking your intent gives the unconscious a fulcrum to rearrange its forces, and reading others reminds you you're not walking home alone. If this resonated, like, subscribe, and pass it to a friend who needs steady ground. Next time we'll touch the bloodstream of your inner brand boundaries and energy, because what's rare becomes sacred and what's inflated loses value. We'll separate containment conscious, holding from suppression, a slow fuse, and we'll build a gate for your attention so that saying yes becomes a ceremony, not a reflex. Until then, if there were nothing left to prove, what would you carry into your next room? Stillness or haste? If value is gravity, then boundaries are orbit. Without orbit, a planet burns out. With orbit, it becomes a living world. This chapter is about energy, the quiet currency behind every interaction, and Jung's art of containment, holding the tension of opposites long enough for something deeper to be born. In America, where calendars are crammed and notifications never sleep, we often confuse generosity with self-erasure. Inner luxury isn't how much you give away, it's the quality of what you keep to nourish your soul. What do you preserve so your life can keep flowering? Picture your energy as a walled garden with a gate. The garden welcomes dawn bees in the gardener's hands, but there's still a gate. The gate isn't punishment. It's discernment, right season, right guest, right purpose. In Jung's language, the gate is where the persona stops and the self answers. Does this feed me? Does this serve my wholeness? If yes, the gate opens with hospitality. If no, it closes in quiet respect. Which visitors have you been letting in out of habit rather than alignment? Now, a crucial distinction: containment versus suppression. Containment is holding your feelings like a potter cradling hot glaze. Name them, feel the heat move through, then choose action. Suppression is shoving those feelings into a lock-in basement and pretending no one's down there until the late explosion. Containment breeds agency. Suppression breeds passive aggression. In Jung's frame, real containment sits in the central channel where the self leads, not where the persona performs. Where do you need to hold rather than bolt the door? A simple story from Seattle. Noah, a product lead, ends each day feeling like a crushed soda can. Pays good projects, exciting teammates, respectful. So why empty? One night he runs an energy audit, a page split into charge and drain. He lists a 15-minute stand-up charge. After hours, a message change, drain meetings without an agenda, drain a 30-minute walk with no headphones, charge lunch with an inspiring colleague, charge opening email on waking drain. He sees the culprit, not the job, but the unnamed leaks. The little asks he accepts from fear of missing out or being judged. The next day, he installs 3 gates. Time no replies after 6:30 p.m. Attention email in 2 blocks a day. Presence no meeting without a stated objective. A week later, his calm baseline is back and his contributions sharpen because he brings density, not fragments, to the table. What would appear on your drain column tonight? Healthy boundaries aren't barbed wire fences. They're well-placed gates, and gates need language. 5 clean no's, short, clear, and blame-free. Thanks for asking. I'm not taking on extra work this week. I appreciate the invite. I'm resting tonight. Let's revisit another time. Good idea. Let's return to it when we have data. I want to continue, but this pace isn't right. Let's slow one beat. I need 20 minutes to settle. I'll rejoin this conversation. Let animus give the spine, anima. Keep the warmth and the self-choose timing so your boundary lands like a ritual, not a wall. Which sentence will you practice this week? Expect pushback. Some people benefited from your infinite availability. Remember projection. What they haven't processed may get thrown onto your surface. Don't rush to fix or defend. Breathe 4, hold 2. Exhale 6. Ask quietly, which part of my shadow just got touched? What fear is making me over-explain? Then anchor the space with a 12-word line. I hear what you need. I'll respond in the morning. You protected your orbit without blowing up the tiny solar system between you. Where could this line save you today? Use the 3 gates ritual before any energy-costly decision. Gate of purpose. Does this serve the self or only polish the persona? Gate of season. Is this the right timing for me? Gate of value. Is the return proportionate to the energy I'll invest? If all 3 say yes, open with hospitality. If any says no, delay or decline. This turns boundaries from defensive reflex into an ordered art of living. Which gate says not yet for you? And a cultural note, healthy silence is not stonewalling. Healthy silence creates a container so the right words can arrive. Stonewalling weaponizes distance. When you need quiet, name to the window. I need half an hour to sort my feelings. I'll come back after. Brief, humane, responsible, the grammar of a good gate. What time frame will you name next time? Measurement matters. For 7 days, track 3 soft KPIs each evening. Well, how many clean no's did I say 2? How many times did I pause before responding? Which gate did I set today? And how did my body feel after warmer, lighter, steadier? Watch long enough and your nervous system changes, color less, pulled, more led. Which metric will be hardest for you to keep? We're not walking alone. Join the channel's gravity circle. People practicing boundaries like music, right note, right tempo, right tone. In the comments, share 1 gate you'll build this week, time, attention, or presence, and 1 clean no you'll use. Drop an emoji if you like for gate, for energy, for stillness. I'll read a few commitments in the next video so you can feel the resonance of a growing tribe. What will you declare publicly today? From here, another door opens. Once energy has gates and orbits, presence stops being effort and starts being consequence. Next, we'll shape your signature presence, 5 micro adjustments in breath, posture, gaze, cadence, and pause so the room settles, not because you're loud, but because you're ordered. Before we cut, ask, which single gate, if I build it today, would return 20% of my lost peace? Write it down. Hand to heart. Step forward, light, grounded, gated, guided. If the last section helped you build gates for your energy, this one designs the architecture of presence where inner gravity becomes something you can feel in the room. In Jung's language, this is where the persona stops leading and returns to its ceremonial role so the self, the living ancient center, can set the tempo. Signature presence isn't a trick. It's the quiet fit between inner weather and outer atmosphere, between what you know is true and how your body, voice, and gaze all testify to it. When that alignment is right, you don't need to stress the point. The room settles of its own accord, like a lake smoothing after the wind has passed. When you enter a room, do you carry noise or gravity? Picture yourself as a conductor stepping onto the stage. The orchestra isn't them, it's you. Heartbeat, diaphragm, vocal cords, eyes, the warmth of your hands. A good conductor doesn't whip the baton to look powerful. They simply raise a hand and choose silence at the right moment so every instrument remembers its place. Presence works the same way. Instead of trying to impress you, tune the quiet instruments, breathe down into your belly so your voice rests in your chest. Drop your shoulders so your neck lengthens and your arms stop guarding. Hold eye contact for 3 seconds before you speak. Keep your first line under 12 words so the listener's brain can lock onto your signal. Pause a beat after each idea so meaning can land. 5 tiny adjustments, but when they click, your inner orchestra changes key from rushed to grounded, from apologetic to sovereign, from chasing recognition to offering focused attention. Which instrument in you needs tuning? First, breath, gaze, or pace? A story from Brooklyn. Ava, a designer, is excellent at her craft, and at every presentation she races, scared she'll be cut off. If I slow down, they'll think I'm unsure, she says. That night, she tries active imagination. Eyes closed, she sees an old stage amber dust floating. 3 figures sit in the audience, a little girl hugging her knees, a black-crowned queen, and a servant clutching sketches. The girl whispers, "If I slow down, they'll leave." The queen smiles, "If you slow down, your words gain the weight to stay." The servant murmurs, "We don't run deadlines on our own stage." Ava bows to all 3 as her musicians, then chooses a pre-meeting ritual. Tap the toe to the floor. The ground is here, breathe 4-2-6 and carry an 11-word opener. Today I'll guide you through 3 essential points that matter most. The next morning she does exactly that. The room doesn't look away, not because the slides got flashier, but because the orchestra inside her finally snapped into tune. What would your 11-word opener sound like today? Jung would say the match between inside and outside is a sign the self is holding the wheel. When animus, the principle of clear structure, gives your words a spine, and anima, the principle of felt connection, warms their tone, you stop performing confidence and begin emitting order. Order is easy to recognize. It relaxes the listener's ears, softens the other person's gaze, and makes hard questions feel like a conversation. And order doesn't fight chaos. It contains it long enough for a third thing to appear: an insight, a way through, or just the plain truth in simple language. Where do you notice people's bodies relax around you? What were you doing differently? But this is America, you might say. People interrupt and talk loud. How do I keep my pause when someone cuts in? Don't sprint. Try the dome of silence. Keep your eyes soft for 2 breaths. Tilt your head a degree to acknowledge what was said. Then reset the tempo with a 12-word line. I'll address that point right after I complete this current point here. It respects them and hangs a hook so you can finish your path. This isn't a trick. It's containment and communication. You hold the collision instead of pushing it away, and reason has time to surface. Where could that sentence save your focus this week? Orderly presence also chooses the right material for silence. Silence from fear tightens the body. Silence from containment opens it. Your skin can feel the difference. Let every pause be a small room where the self checks. Does what I'm about to say serve truth or just rescue my image? If it's image, let it drift by like a cloud. If it's truth, speak fewer words than you want, slower than you prefer, and round the final syllable so the sentence has a shore. Your voice starts to flow like a river, not endless, just banked. In your last hard conversation, was your quiet, protective, or generative? On the practical level, train 5 beats of presence inside a busy American day. Beat 1 feet, touch the ground before you touch the crowd. Beat 2 breath, 1 belly breath before the first line. Beat 3 eyes, hold steady for 3 seconds before shifting, slides or people. Beat 4, opening line, 12 words, no apology. Beat 5, pause after the key, idea long enough for memory, short enough to keep pace. Tape this to your laptop. Feet, breath, eyes, line, pause. Each time you remember and smile, your inner orchestra hears the conductor's knock. Which beat will you practice most? Every orchestra has a rebellious instrument. Under pressure, the shadow will reach for the baton, anger, surging to the stage, or the fear of judgment, hissing, speak faster, they're bored. Don't yank them off. Invite them to the VIP row. Say quietly inside, thank you for protecting me. Stand beside me, not before me. This is the Jungian move, not exclusion integration. Seated in the right chair, the shadow stops wrecking tempo and starts keeping time, sometimes with instinct, sometimes with razor-clean precision. Which shadow voice needs a front row seat instead of a gag? Try a small right before the camera, the conference room, or a first date, one hand on your chest to feel the vibration, one behind the neck to remind the spine. Whisper, I speak from the ground, not from fear, then deliver your opener tone slower than habit. Record it, listen back on your usual headphones. You'll notice something odd when the body aligns, tone thickens by itself, speed eases by itself, sentences tighten by themselves. You're not acting, you're removing interference so the self can work. What changes when you reduce speed by just that 10%? If this section touched you, leave a micro commitment in the comments for this week. Your 12-word opener you'll try, or one situation where you'll use the dome of silence. Drop an emoji so we can recognize each other for compassionate voice, for steady gaze, for a pause with banks. I'll read a few in the next video so we learn not alone, but in orbit. What will you declare publicly today? From here, the next door opens. Strong presence only lasts when the inner world is refined daily. In the next part, we'll enter Jungian emotional intelligence, how to read your inner weather, tell containment from repression, and use journaling, dreams, and active imagination to diffuse the minds in the shadow. In the end, you don't need to become someone else. You need fewer obstacles so you can step out as yourself. Before we go, ask one simple, deep question. If I spoke 10% slower and paused one beat longer, what in my life would finally have time to return to its rightful place? If the last chapter slowed your tempo and shaped your signature presence, this one takes us into the inner workshop, where emotion becomes intelligence and wounds become structure. In Jung's language, this is individuation, loosening our identification with the persona, giving the shadow a seat of honor, and letting the self, the living ancient center, hold the baton. In America, where speed is praised and outcomes get the applause, we often confuse emotional intelligence with being endlessly nice. But EI isn't kindness at all costs, and it isn't smiling through a storm. EI is the quiet barometer inside your chest that lets you respond instead of react. Say less, but hit true. Be silent, yet full. Where lately do you feel the pull to react instead of respond? Start with a familiar scene in Austin. Jordan, an engineering lead, is widely considerate and constantly exhausted, belly clenched like he's waiting for a starting pistol. At every code review critique, he fires off a long justification, dry eyes, quick heart, then remembers at midnight he never ate dinner. One evening he tries a small experiment. No self-fixing, no acting calm. He simply sits down, places a hand on his belly, and scribbles 3 lines. What just happened? What does my body feel? What do I really want to say? To his surprise, the real line isn't a defense, it's short and warm. Thanks for pointing that out. I need 20 minutes to review, then I'll respond. The next morning, he does exactly that. No one leaves. No one calls him unprofessional. The room suddenly has a shoreline. That's EI speaking feelings, named the body heard action, chosen, not dragged. What 3 lines would your notebook hold tonight? In Jung's world, symbols are the language of the unconscious. Dreams are unopened letters. The next night, Jordan dreams of a subway station. Trains roar by named, be right now, don't be judged. Answer immediately. One train moves slowly, doors held open longer than usual, titled, Wait for my rhythm. He steps in. Beside him sits a silent driver in a dark cap, eyes steady. Can I drive? Jordan asks. The figure nods, rests Jordan's hand on the wheel. Waking up, he gets it. The inner animus, clear structure, isn't the tight-chested critic. It's calm timing and frame. And the anima felt connection isn't a wave that drowns. It's warm water that carries the voice without dissolving it. When these two sit in their right chairs, EI stops being performing good behavior and becomes the natural breath of a nervous system that's been respected. Which inner principle do you need more of right now, structure or warmth? To refine your inner world each day, walk 3 sturdy paths: journaling, dreams, and active imagination. Only journaling isn't for pretty sentences, it's scaffolding for the unconscious. Each evening, write 3 lines. Where was I touched today? What did my body say, and did I listen? If I had nothing to prove, how would I respond? After 7 days, certain sentences repeat like signals. I'm afraid of being abandoned. I'm afraid I'm useless. I'm afraid of losing face. Those lines are keys to your shadow's door. Which line keeps repeating for you? Dreams arrive like loose map tiles. Your task is to assemble the terrain. Before sleep, whisper a brief intention. If there's a message about boundaries, please show me. Keep a notebook by the bed on waking. Write what you remember: colors, objects, body feel. Skip the symbol dictionary at first. Ask 3 very Jungian questions. What personal associations do I have with this image? What feeling comes with it most strongly? If the dream is trying to heal me, what is it helping with today? You'll notice the self not in the clever answer, but in bodily shifts. Shoulders drop, breath deepens, eyes guard less. What changed in your body as you wrote? Active imagination is the bridge between day and night. Choose one stubborn emotion, set a 10-minute timer, close your eyes, and invite the first image forward. Don't narrate dialogue. Ask short questions. What are you here to protect? What do you need to sit beside me, not on top of me? Write exactly what you hear using I from the image's point of view. End with a closing gesture, hand to heart, a small bow, and a date to return. The strange thing is, the more you honor the image, the less it haunts you. Aggression becomes a doorway to unclaimed courage. Tears become an entry to an unnamed need for connection. Which figure is ready to speak if you stop overruling it? Mature EI always carries a warning about mana inflation, the intoxication of power. When we first taste self-mastery, you may start judging others as low EI, dismiss their panic, or weaponize silence to win. Pause and ask the uncomfortable question: am I using EI as a shiny persona to dodge the real wound? If yes, breathe and drop your voice into your chest. I'm afraid of being pulled into chaos, so I build an ivory tower. Naming the fear is the first step of humility, and humility is the safety harness on every psychological strength. Where might humility be the exact medicine you are avoiding? On the measurement layer, give yourself a 30-day soft KPI board, not to punish, but to notice. Did the gap between stimulus and response lengthen by a few seconds? Did you reclaim more projections? Did sleep quality improve when you recorded dreams? Did your clean nose come with fewer justifications? These small indicators are proof you're doing real alchemy from nigredo, dark, dense matter, to albedo, clear and light to rubedo, warm, glowing red metal beginning to shine. Which KPI will be hardest for you to keep honest? From here, the next door opens onto a rare, costly, ever-available material: silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of center. In the next section, we'll learn the language of silence: when to hold it to contain, when to speak to release, and how to use a pause like a mirror that lets truth appear without argument. Before you step through, try 10 seconds right now and ask, if tomorrow I cut my explanations in half, what in my life would finally return to its rightful place? When the answer lands in your chest like a warm stone, you're ready for the least wordy and most powerful language of all. If the first 4 parts laid the groundwork, value, boundaries, presence, and emotional intelligence, then silence is the rare material that binds them. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of center. In Jung's language, silence is the vessel that can hold opposites side by side: fear and courage, desire and discipline, speech and non-speech, until a third thing appears: meaning. You don't force it, inner order reveals itself. In America, where notifications swarm and hot takes are a daily diet, silence is often mistaken for weakness or indifference. But containing silence doesn't withdraw, it anchors. Think of a lighthouse in fog. It doesn't shout for ships, it shines on rhythm. That's the self-silence, very different from fearful stonewalling, which uses distance as a weapon. Containing silence uses distance as breathing room for truth. Where lately have you confused a clean pause with avoidance? Try this in a very American scene: family dinner in Chicago, where small talk can slide into, "So when are you getting married?" instead of reacting or over-explaining. Run the 90-second silence ritual. 1. Feel your feet on the floor. 2. Breathe. 4. Hold. 2. Exhale. 6. Twice. 3. Touch the table edge. Feel the cool wood. 4. Offer a round, slow 12-word line. This topic matters. I'd like to answer it when I'm ready. The room may wobble, that's normal. You just stepped out of the old script while preserving everyone's dignity. What 12 words would protect your center tonight? In a San Francisco meeting, silence is also a lever. If you're interrupted for the 3rd time, don't sprint. Build a 2-breath dome of silence. Give a small nod to acknowledge, then anchor with, I'll address that point right after I complete this one. That's containment in communication. Holding the collision so reason can surface. When animus clear structure give your words a spine, anima felt connection warms your tone, and the self chooses timing. A brief pause can change the room's climate. Where will you use that anchor line this week? A warning from Jung: beware mana inflations, the intoxication that can follow your first taste of inner stillness. Silence can turn into control, staying quiet to make others anxious to win. Ask the hard question, am I silent to contain or silent to control? Your body will tell you. Control tightens, locked jaw, lifted shoulders, narrowed eyes. Containment opens shoulders, drop, breath, deepens, gaze softens. The body is the fastest truth detector you have. What signal is your body sending right now? Before you speak, pass through the 3 gates. True, am I stating what's accurate without puffing or hiding? Good, does this nourish the relationship process or only feed my ego? Timely, is now the right moment for this person to receive it. If all 3 say yes, speak fewer words than you want, slower than you prefer. If any says no, pause. That's not avoidance. That's preserving order. On the micro level, where viewer retention is decided, use 5 bordered signals of silence. 1. Round breath before key lines. 2. Soften the eyelids for 1-2 seconds. 3. Nod, 5 degrees when hearing pushback. 4. Break the sentence right after the keyword. 5. Land on a lower, warmer, final syllable. These turn silence from a void into an instrument. Which signal will you practice first? Try an active imagination for silence. Close your eyes and enter an old library. On the wooden desk sits a small bell. Each time the mind lunges to argue, tap the bell and hear the ring fade like a wave. Let the librarian, a symbol of the self, slide a card across on hold, right with later. You didn't discard the point, you shelved it. When you open your eyes, the I must speak impulse has softened and language begins to choose you. What would your librarian file for later today? Also, separate personal silence from social silence. Personal silence is your inner room for self-observation. Social silence is your right not to discuss topics that cross your boundaries: religion, politics, private life. You're allowed to say, I respect the question and I don't discuss that. That's not a lack of openness. That's sovereignty. Healthy communities honor each other's gates. Which gate needs a sign on it? Measure progress gently. For 7 days, track soft KPIs. 1. How many times you chose 2 beats of silence before responding. 2. How often you shifted from justifying to I'll respond at specific time. 3. Sleep quality, when you didn't carry arguments to bed. Small numbers, big recovery. Which metric will be your anchor this week? I'd love you to pause for 10 seconds right now. Breathe 4-6 twice, then drop a comment. One situation I'll practice bordered silence in this week is add an emoji so we can find each other for silence, for center, for right timing. I'll read a few anonymously if you prefer in the next video so we can feel the resonance field where one person's silence steadies another's voice. What will you declare publicly today? From here, the final door waits. Everything we've built, value, boundaries, presence, EI, silence only matters when lived as a simple daily right. In the conclusion, we'll weave these threads into a 5-minute soul warm-up before you enter any room. You stop asking permission to exist and start arriving as an invitation. Keep one line in your chest: I'm silent to contain, then I speak to release. When that becomes a rhythm theory, becomes footsteps and inner elegance, stops being an idea and becomes the way you cross a threshold. As we close this journey, remember the luxury you've been seeking was never in the spotlight. It lives in your inner gravity, the quiet force that makes a room settle when you enter. You've walked 5 doors, unshakable, worth gated energy, signature presence, refined emotional intelligence, in the language of bordered silence. In Jung's terms, these are the small spirals of individuation, each turn bringing you nearer to the self, the living ancient center within. You don't need permission to shine. You only need fewer obstacles so the self can step forward. Before you go, try a 5-minute rite to restore order, 1 minute of 4-6 breathing, 1 minute of listening to the body, are the shoulders lowered, the jaw soft. 1 minute to ask, am I serving the truth or rescuing my image? 1 minute to write a 12-word commitment for tomorrow. And 1 minute of bordered silence. Practice it consistently, and your calm becomes your invisible voice. Few words, clear signal. Less effort, longer echo. If this message landed, leave a short comment. This week I will, followed by 1 micro action. Say a clean no, build a time gate, or use the dome of silence when interrupted. Drop an emoji so we can recognize each other, for center, for gates, for bordered pause. Your small commitments become fulcrums for others, and next week I'll read a few anonymously if you prefer. So this community becomes a living field, not just words on a screen. If you want to keep walking with us, subscribe and turn on notifications. Each week we'll weave one Jungian thread into busy American life, a fresh clean, no, a short active imagination practice, a 3-minute pre-meeting ritual, or a body map to tell containment from suppression. I promise to keep the tempo slow, the language warm, and a place of dignity for silence in every conversation. Carry this pocket line with you. I am silent to contain, then I speak to release. When it becomes a rhythm, luxury stops being a shell and becomes the way you cross thresholds, steady, warm, and order. Thank you for being here today. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll braid these practices into a simple daily ritual so each day holds a quiet place for the soul to rest.